Nostalgia is such a powerful drug, and I've definitely fallen victim to it, and I'm sure you have too. It's definitely a case of rose tinted glasses that you just can't shake off, most of the time. For the sake of today's video, it's stop motion videos, and a few in particular stand out to me. But to be specific, it's Iron Man Ambush. As a young lad, this was quite an interesting story to see unfold, but I was always fascinated by this Woody figure. This action figure was unlike the ones in retail stores, and I had never seen it before. What a fascinating specimen. But the most crucial detail that stuck with me is this face. Why? What is that? Why is he making that face? This face was plastered all over every weird action figure community post, and it somehow reincarnates into new images every now and again, and I still see it posted to this day. It's kind of wild. Obviously, at first glance, this is quite the face to make. It has its implications, but nevertheless, it's up to the viewer's interpretation. But because of its more popularized interpretation, you tend to see this figure in sticky situations, to say the least. And as such, after a tremendous journey through heaps of bootlegs, I arrived at the Revoltech Toy Story Woody figure. Revoltech is mostly known for its interesting articulation style, opting for more posability than design, but nowadays they've struck a better balance. From what I've gathered, Revoltech figure number 10, which was produced and manufactured by Kayiodo, was Woody from Disney Pixar's Toy Story series. Released to coincide with Toy Story 3 in 2010, this was the first iteration of the figure, which came with a couple of hands, a buzz hand, a microphone, Lenny, a nameplate, and the infamous face. Something to note in particular with Woody and the other figures in this line is the movable eyes. Since the faces work on faceplates, you can move around the individual eyes, which is both really cool yet horrifying. Honestly, from a visual standpoint, Woody's lanky proportions I think fit fairly well with the Revoltech style. Keen-eyed viewers will realize that one of these hands doesn't belong to Woody, and alongside the release of number 10 was number 11, being Buzz Lightyear. The original Buzz figure, numbered 11, came with fewer accessories than Woody, only having one alternate faceplate, 3 army men, and a nameplate. However, his wings are removable to allow for a non-flight mode version. Despite not having alternate hands, Buzz's hands are posable. The 4 fingers move as a joint, so you can have a somewhat fist or an open palm. For what they are, these were proper Toy Story action figures, and the best for articulation in the figures released by the movies by Mattel. But early Revoltech figures and their ratcheted joints may have not been very durable, and to stand the test of time. But these two wouldn't be the only releases of Woody and Buzz, and just the beginning of the Toy Story collection. A super quick side note before diving too deep into this line, I wanted to mention this, number 5 of the Pixar Figure Collection. A super simplified release of Woody with an alien, extra face, and 2 sets of hands. More on this later, but I just wanted to include this in the Woody timeline. In 2013, a newcomer to the Toy Story line would arrive, being number 48, Jessie. She released with a handful of accessories, being 7 hands, 2 alternate faceplates, her hat, and a lasso. This figure looks super cool, and is definitely a great addition to the Toy Story line. Like with Woody, I think the lanky proportions from the films lend some leniency to the Revoltech articulation style, making for a super posable figure with great representation. These 3 characters would be the complete line for quite a while, but do get some new iterations. Alongside the release of Jessie was 2 repaints, released towards the end of 2013 with sepia-toned Woody and Jessie. This is referencing the Woody's Roundup cartoon, so it's a canonical repaint. Besides the color change, there's no new accessories or anything with these two, but honestly they look nice. Though I think it's funny that they actually repainted Buzz's hand as well. It's so random. Moving ahead for the Legacy of Revoltech line, Woody, Buzz, and Jessie were all re-released. The accessories remain the same, with most notable changes being improved joints and a new box. Standard reissue territory. Also, I think the Legacy set got re-released in 2019, so I just want to put that out there as well. Following the Legacy set, I believe we jumped to 2022. Oh wow. This is version 1.5 of Woody and Buzz, but let's start with Buzz, who I think got some deserved improvements from his previous iteration. Buzz 1.5 comes with 4 additional faceplates, 3 army men, 2 wings, and an alien. This figure also decked with a new coat of paint and details, setting him up for a pretty nice upgrade. Moving on to Woody 1.5, he also got some new accessories, being 3 new faceplates and a green alien on top of his pre-existing 1.0 accessories. The 1.5 figures upped the quality of these two Revoltech figures, but someone was missing. For some reason, Jessie wasn't included with the 1.5 releases in 2022 and instead got re-released in 2024. She brought along her 1.0 accessories alongside 2 new faces and another alien. At least all the aliens have different expressions, making the main trio from Toy Story 3, so that's cool if you get them all. With all the 1.5 versions of these old figures now running around, what's next? Well, in between the releases of Woody and Buzz 1.5 and Jessie 1.5, they've released Zurg from Toy Story 2. An absolute baller move to release Zurg, with a super cool looking figure. From his appearance in Toy Story 2, this figure comes with Zurg necessities like his big ass gun, pre-equipped trigger hands, and a ball for his launcher gun thing. A surprising yet welcomed addition to this line. With all of that out of the way, wait, there's one more. The final release as of now is another version of Woody. Woody 2.0 comes with everything added from 1.5, but now with 2 more faces and a new hand. Not much else to say, besides that this hand shows the size of the snake in my boot. Let's just move on to the review section of the video with the Revoltech 1.5 iteration of Woody. Let's take a look at my Woody, shall we? Here is the woodiest Woody that ever woodied, Woody 1.5. The second release of the Kayiodo Revoltech Woody action figures. Based on his look from Toy Story 3, this figure is a great representation of the cowboy. However, the bottom of his shoe does say Andy, so he can be any iteration of Woody from the 3 films. Being a Revoltech figure, everything operates on ball joints, and as such there's a decent amount of articulation points to go over, so let's quickly do that first. Starting at the legs, there's a rotating ball joint upper leg system, ball joint at the knee, ball joint at the ankle, allowing for pivot and basic movement. Moving up the torso, hidden by the free moving belt is a ball joint waist swivel and ball joint at the bottom of the neck. The arms have shoulder movement, ball joint elbows, and ball joint wrists. Swapping out the hands work on pegs, and finally with the head there's a ball joint at the top of the neck. There's lots of balls on this guy. Revoltech is known for its articulation, and this figure doesn't disappoint. With everything working on ball joints, you can rotate all his limbs to whatever direction you want. Unlike their superhero releases, Woody's lanky proportions do a better job of hiding the many ball joints, while keeping the ability to articulate him just as well. Moving on to the accessories, we get quite a handful, so let's start with the faces. Out of the box, he's got a kind of smug, smiling face. Of the faces given, this is the most similar to the standard face he does while in toy mode. And a special feature of these faces is that you can move the eyes. In the box, you get a small thing to help move the notches to change the eyes, which is nice if you want a very specific direction, but you can also just use your finger. Next up is one of the 2 scared faces. This one is like a wincing, worried face, which is cool, maybe if he's sneaking around, though I think it's unnecessary given the second option. We also get a panicked, screaming face, which I think works better if you're going for a terrified expression. Moving towards a happier style is an open mouth, smiling face. Not much to say about it, though I think it's more unsettling than intended. And finally, arguably the most infamous, is a mischievous, grinning face. If I had to make a guess, unless there's some very specific frame where he makes his face, it's supposed to be a laughing expression, but it got lost in the sauce, unfortunately. Moving on to the hands, we have a set of open palm hands, finger gun hands, a slightly larger open palm hand, which I think is meant for one of his other accessories I'll get to later, a gripping hand, which could be used to hold the microphone accessory, then a separate open palm hand, but with the peg, which in fact is a great segue to the final accessories, the 2 extra characters. This is technically a 3-pack if you think about it. First up is Lenny the Binoculars, which doesn't have any articulation but is able to plug into Woody's hands, so that's a fun inclusion. And then, a new addition for the 1.5 release is a Pizza Planet alien. This one actually has some features of his own. You can spin his arms around and take off his face to move his eyes. A bit terrifying, but hey, it makes for a cool figure. Oh, and there's also a hand for someone else. Weird. This figure, despite its more upsetting reputation, is actually a pretty cool action figure of the character. A Woody action figure in and of itself is a little weird considering he's a plush doll in the movies, but Revoltech made it work pretty well. A solid Woody. Some would even say hard. Revoltech Woody, at least for me, is a personal favorite. Growing up, the Toy Story movies were always great, and this Woody figure is infamous. I wish we got more super articulated Pixar action figures, because it's one of those brands that you really only get the primary kids line for. Speaking of the Pixar action figures, earlier I mentioned the Pixar Figure Collection, which featured a carded release of Woody. Well, he wasn't alone, as there were a handful of Pixar characters in this line receiving the Revoltech treatment. These supposedly date back to 2011, predating the initial number 10 release. So these I assume to be the first Pixar Revoltech figures. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what it seems like to me. This line had some honestly heavy hitters from the series, with Woody, Mr. Incredible, Nemo, Wally, Lightning McQueen, and Sully. I do want to note that these figures are smaller, ranging from about 4 inches, as opposed to the new releases being closer to 6 inches. I think of all these figures, only Sully got promoted to being a single release format like Woody, and the others remained in this line, which is a bit of a shame since some of these look pretty cool. For a majority of these characters, it's been a long time since they've gotten the premium action figure treatment, especially by Revoltech. But to be fair, Mattel has seemingly been cooking with the Pixar license. They've made a couple waves of Pixar featured favorites, which cover a wider net of Pixar films with a bunch of accessories and whatnot. They even got their own Spotlight series line with a low-key wild Edna Mode figure. I hope Revoltech keeps on making characters from Toy Story or even Pixar in general, just to keep this cartoon universe thriving, especially in import quality form. But to bring it back to Woody, I just get a sense of nostalgia from this figure, and while it's not the oldest thing, it's just a funny reminder of the past, I guess. The 2.0 version comes with more expressions, newer joints, stuff like that, so it's probably a superior version than this 1.5 model. But me personally, I'm happy with the one I got. With Toy Story 5 on the way, I would assume that more figures are cooking, so we may even get Woody 3.0 in the distant future, or something like that, who knows. But for now, this Kayiodo Revoltech Disney Pixar Toy Story Woody version 1.5 is a pretty solid figure with a grand range of movement and style despite his freaky face.